still unmarried Audrey. Bradley smeared and swirled his champagne. His new rich fiancée giggled beside him. "Time is ticking," he said. "Nobody wants a leftover." He thought he had won. He had no idea that the terrifyingly rich, dangerously old billionaire stepping out of the shadows was not just a very important person, he was her husband. Crystal chandeliers threw broken rainbows across the big ballroom of the Waldorf Astoria. The light shone on the richest people in Manhattan. Audrey Kensington stood near a tall ice sculpture. She held a glass of sparkling water. She wore a simple but very elegant black velvet dress that fit her body perfectly. Her dark hair was pulled up in a neat style. She looked calm and graceful, while everyone else rushed around, talking about money and deals at the yearly Sterling Forbes charity gala. The quiet did not last. A familiar, sharp voice cut through the air. Bradley Weston, the man who had been her boyfriend for 5 years, appeared from the crowd. He wore a shiny custom tuxedo that showed he had new money. On his arm hung Chloe, a 22-year-old girl from a rich family. Her family's money had paid for Bradley's big tech company. Bradley had ended things with Audrey in a 2-minute phone call 6 months earlier. That call came right after she had spent years helping him turn a dusty garage idea into a real company that people in Silicon Valley noticed. "Audrey," Bradley said, his voice mixed pity and pride. "I didn't expect to see you here. Did you manage to get a +1 from someone in middle management?" Audrey did not jump or look upset. She took a slow sip of her water. "I received an invitation, Bradley, just like everyone else." Chloe giggled and leaned on Bradley's shoulder. She flashed a diamond ring that was much too big and not pretty at all. "Oh, Brad, is this the ex you told me about? The one who works in, what was it, antique restoration? Something like that?" Bradley laughed and fixed his shirt cuffs. He leaned closer to Audrey. His strong cologne made her want to step away. "You know, Audrey, you really should start looking for someone new. It's been half a year, still unmarried, still single. Time is ticking. Nobody wants a leftover in this city. You're not getting any younger. Standing alone in a corner at a party like this just looks sad." Audrey gave a polite, empty smile and kept her eyes steady. If only Bradley knew the big, amazing truth. If only he knew that the quiet antique restorer he had thrown away was now married by blood and law to a man whose money and power were bigger than the whole Forbes top 10 put together. 6 months ago, after Bradley's mean phone call, Audrey had been caught in heavy rain. She had run into a special, appointment-only antique shop on the Upper East Side. That was where she met Alistair Rothschild. He was a man of opposites, impossibly good-looking, with sharp, noble features, eyes the color of stormy seas, and a presence that seemed to take all the air from the room. He had given her a towel, a cup of rare tea from far away, and a talk that lasted until the sun came up. It did not take long for Audrey to see that Alistair was not a normal man. His skin always felt cold. He moved with quiet, careful grace, like a hunter. He knew things about the Renaissance that no history book could teach. When he finally told her the truth, that he was the immortal king of a secret rich vampire society that quietly controlled world money and politics, Audrey did not run. Instead, she felt pulled toward the fierce, protective love he offered. They were married in a secret blood ceremony in a large old house in upstate New York, only 2 months later. She was not just married, she was a queen. But Alistair had asked to keep their marriage out of the human newspapers, to protect her from other supernatural groups, while he made his power stronger in the city. Tonight was supposed to be their first time showing the world together. "I appreciate your concern, Bradley," Audrey said in a calm, smooth voice that was soft next to his loud pride. "But I promise you, my personal life is doing very well." Bradley snorted and drank more champagne. "Right, doing well. Is your make-believe boyfriend in the bathroom, or did you just come for the free caviar?" Before Audrey could answer, the temperature in the big ballroom dropped hard. It was not a small change. It was a sudden, bone-cold frost that made the breath of several guests turn white in the air. The happy talk of the party stopped at once. A heavy, tight silence filled the space. The thick wooden double doors at the entrance were pushed open by two nervous event workers. Every head turned. Alistair Rothschild stood in the doorway. He wore a perfect midnight blue tuxedo that fit his broad, strong body. His dark hair was neat. His pale, perfect face showed absolute power. He gave off a feeling of total control, a deep animal energy that made the human guests step back without thinking. They parted like the Red Sea as he walked into the room. Whispers spread fast among the rich people. "Is that Rothschild? I heard he never comes to these things. He almost owns the Federal Reserve. What is he doing here?" Bradley's eyes went wide. He stopped making fun of Audrey at once. His desire for success pushed his pride aside. "Holy hell," Bradley whispered, his voice shaking with hungry hope. "That's Alistair Rothschild, the head of Vanguard Holdings. I've been trying to get a meeting with his buying team for 3 months. If he helps my company, we will be worldwide by next season." Audrey watched quietly as Alistair's sharp eyes moved across the room. The moment those eyes found hers, the frightening cold in them melted into warm, claiming love. He started walking straight toward their corner. His feet made no sound on the marble floor. "Watch and learn, Audrey," Bradley hissed quickly, fixing his tie and pushing Chloe a little behind him. "This is how a real winner makes friends. Maybe I'll say a good word so you can get a job in his mailroom." Silence spread outward from Alistair as he crossed the ballroom. The high society crowd shrank back from the invisible weight of his presence. He did not look at the billionaires, politicians, or famous people who tried hard to catch his eye. His attention stayed locked only on Audrey. Bradley, blinded by his own huge ego, thought the billionaire was coming to him. When Alistair was 5 feet away, Bradley stepped forward hard, blocking Audrey from sight. He stuck out his hand and put on a big, fake friendly smile. "Mr. Rothschild," Bradley's loud voice broke the quiet tension in their corner. "Bradley Weston, head of Weston Tech. It is a true honor. I have been watching Vanguard Holdings grow fast in the European tech area, and I truly believe our new computer system could change the way you handle data." Alistair stopped. He did not look at Bradley's hand. He slowly tilted his head. His storm-gray eyes locked onto Bradley's face, with the calm interest of a hunter looking at a small bug. The silence stretched and grew painfully thick. Bradley's smile started to fail. His open hand twitched as the icy feeling in the room seemed to gather only around them. "Weston," Alistair said softly. His voice was rich, dark, and smooth like velvet. It was not loud, but it made everyone obey. "I am familiar with your company." Bradley's chest puffed out with relief. "Excellent. Then you know we are close to a huge success. Actually, I would love to introduce you to my fiancée, Chloe Harrington, of the Harrington real estate family." Chloe gave a nervous little wave. Bradley then waved his hand behind him toward Audrey as if she did not matter. "And this is just, well, an old friend of mine, Audrey. She's nobody important, just hanging around." Alistair's eyes moved. For a tiny moment, the storm-gray color flashed a frightening bright red. Only Audrey and Bradley were close enough to see it. Bradley blinked and stepped back half a step. Sudden animal fear gripped his chest. He suddenly felt as if he stood in front of a hungry wolf with no weapon. "An old acquaintance," Alistair repeated. The danger in his voice grew. He stepped neatly around Bradley, ignoring the tech boss completely, and stopped right in front of Audrey. The terrifying cold air around the billionaire melted away at once and became gentle, strong warmth. Alistair reached out and took Audrey's hand. He brought her knuckles to his lips and pressed a soft, respectful kiss on her skin. "My apologies for being late, my love," Alistair said. His voice was loud enough for Bradley, Chloe, and the listening rich people to hear clearly. The board meeting in Geneva lasted longer than planned. "I hope you have not been too bored without me." Audrey smiled a real bright smile that lit up her whole face. She stepped to his side, and Alistair at once put a protective, claiming arm around her waist. "I was managing," she answered softly, "though I did have to listen to some rather boring talk." Bradley looked as if lightning had hit him. His mouth hung open. All the color left his face. He looked from Audrey's calm face to Alistair's strong figure. His brain could not understand what was happening. Chloe gasped and put her hand over her mouth. "Your love?" Bradley stammered, his voice cracking. "Mr. Rothschild, there must be some mistake. This is Audrey Kensington. She's just an antique restorer." Alistair turned his eyes back to Bradley, and the warmth disappeared. The icy, immortal king returned. "She is Audrey Rothschild," Alistair corrected in a deadly tone. "My wife, and the co-chair of Vanguard Holdings." The whispers in the ballroom exploded into excited noise. "Wife? Rothschild is married? Did he say Audrey Rothschild?" Bradley's knees almost gave way. The champagne glass slipped from his shaking fingers and smashed on the marble floor. The sound was very loud in the tight silence. "Wife," he whispered. The word tasted like ash in his mouth. He looked at Audrey, really looked at her. He saw the quiet confidence, the perfect velvet dress, the soft but breathtaking diamond necklace that he had thought was fake jewelry. It was suddenly clear that the necklace was worth more than his whole company. "Now," Alistair continued, his eyes narrowing into deadly slits, "you mentioned Weston Tech, a small, interesting startup that depends heavily on its main investor, a shell company in the Cayman Islands, correct?" Bradley nodded dumbly. Sweat formed on his forehead, even though the air was freezing. "Yes, Apex Investments." Alistair smiled, but it was a cruel, sharp smile that showed too many teeth. "Apex Investments is a part of Vanguard Holdings. That means, Mr. Weston, I own 90% of your debt." He paused, and let the next words hang in the air like a death sentence. "And after hearing you call my queen a leftover, I believe I will call in that debt. Tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock sharp." Bradley made a weak sound that was half choke and half sob. Calling in the debt right away would make him lose everything. It would wipe out all he had built, everything he had taken Audrey's time to create. Chloe realized she was suddenly tied to a sinking ship. She took a big step away from Bradley and looked horrified. "You can't do that," Bradley begged. His proud face was completely broken. He was pleading now. "Please, it was a joke, just a misunderstanding. Audrey, tell him we used to be a team." Audrey looked at the man who had thrown her away so cruelly, the man who had made fun of her in front of everyone only minutes earlier. She felt no pity, only a deep sense that things were finished. She rested her head against Alistair's solid chest. "I think," Audrey said quietly, her voice carrying perfectly in the silent room, "that your time is ticking, Bradley. Nobody wants a bankrupt boss in this city." Absolute heavy silence covered the Waldorf Astoria ballroom. The richest people of Manhattan, hedge fund managers, real estate kings, and old money heiresses, stood completely still. Their champagne glasses hung in the air. Bradley Weston's face had lost all color. It matched the pure white tablecloths around the room. He looked less like a clever tech star, and more like a scared child who had just broken a priceless object. Two wide-shouldered security guards with quiet earpieces appeared from the shadows of the tall arches. They did not work for the hotel. They wore the small black pins of Vanguard Holdings private security. At a tiny nod from Alistair Rothschild, the guards moved to Bradley's sides and held his custom jacket with strong, unyielding hands. "Mr. Rothschild, wait, please. We can talk about this. I can give you part of the company." Bradley's voice cracked and rose to a high, desperate pitch as the guards lifted him off his shiny, expensive shoes. His frantic pleas echoed against the golden ceiling, but Alistair had already turned his back and completely ignored the ruined man's existence. "Chloe Harrington, terrified of the social damage, almost ran toward the restroom, leaving her disgraced fiancé to be pulled backward through the heavy wooden doors. Audrey watched the door close, and let out a breath she had not known she was holding. A wave of soft talk started again at once. The power balance of New York's high society had changed hard in only a few seconds. Every eye locked onto Audrey, measuring her new value. Women who had ignored her for the past hour now tried hard to catch her eye. Their minds raced with what it meant that the Rothschild Empire now had a queen. Alistair's hand rested on the small of her back. His thumb drew a slow, comforting circle on the black velvet of her dress. His skin, cool as always, gave off a magnetic, steadying energy that kept her grounded among the overwhelming sights and sounds of the party. "Are you all right, my love?" he asked softly. His storm-gray eyes searched her face with surprising tenderness. "I can clear this room in 60 seconds if their staring becomes annoying." "I'm perfectly fine," Audrey answered, a real, confident smile touching her lips. "Though I think getting a table at Le Bernardin just became much easier." Alistair chuckled, a rich, dark sound that she felt against her side. But the short moment of lightness was broken by the approach of a tall, elegantly dressed man holding a crystal glass of bourbon. He moved with the still, careful steps of a hunter. Audrey knew at once what he was. He was one of them, an immortal. "Alistair, darling," the man said in a thick British accent, full of noble mockery. "I must admit, when I heard the rumors that the ruthless king of the Northern Coven had taken a human bride, I thought it was a sad joke. Yet here she stands, covered in diamonds and pretending to be a leader of industry." Alistair's posture changed so slightly that most people would not notice. It hardened into a stance of pure, deadly power. The air pressure around them dropped so hard that frost began to form on the base of the nearby ice sculpture. "Sebastian Montgomery," Alistair said. His voice dropped lower and carried a supernatural force that made several nearby humans grab their chests in sudden panic. "I suggest you choose your next words with great care. My patience for your rudeness ended a century ago." Sebastian Montgomery was known in the modern money world as a senior partner at a very aggressive private equity firm tied to European banks. In the hidden world, he was a centuries-old rival who had fought hard against Alistair's control of the East Coast. He had pale blonde hair, sharp green eyes, and a mean smile that never reached his gaze. Sebastian stepped closer, completely ignoring the frightening air Alistair was giving off. He locked his eyes on Audrey and let them drop to the soft pulse at the base of her throat. It was a clear, highly insulting show of supernatural disrespect. "Audrey, isn't it?" Sebastian purred, taking a careful sip of his bourbon. "Fascinating. Tell me, does she know how our world works, Alistair? Does she understand that tying yourself to a fragile human is seen as an unforgivable weakness by the High Council? A weakness your enemies will surely use?" The shy, heartbroken girl, who had cried over Bradley Weston's betrayal 6 months ago, was gone. In her place stood a woman made strong by the ancient, powerful blood bond she shared with the most powerful being in North America. She could feel Alistair's rage boiling through the invisible link that connected their minds, a violent red wave that threatened to break free. Before Alistair could tear Sebastian apart in front of 300 horrified people, Audrey stepped forward. "Mr. Montgomery," Audrey said smoothly. Her voice carried a cold, commanding strength that even surprised her. "I am well aware of how your world works. I am also aware that your firm, Montgomery Capital, recently borrowed far too much money in a desperate try to buy control of the lithium mines in South America." Sebastian's proud smile slipped. His green eyes narrowed with sudden suspicion. Audrey held his gaze, her face perfectly calm, a mirror of her husband's frightening stillness. "It would be a terrible shame," she continued in a voice full of polite danger, "if Vanguard Holdings decided to flood the market with our own lithium supplies tomorrow morning. Your share prices would fall by 70% before the market even opened." You would not only lose your seat on the High Council, Sebastian, you would be begging us for a loan just to keep your Manhattan penthouse. The silence between the three of them was deafening. Sebastian's jaw clenched so hard that the sound of his ancient teeth grinding could be heard over the soft music of the string quartet. He had expected a scared, unknowing human toy. Instead, he had walked straight into the jaws of a predator who had both money power and supernatural power. Sebastian Montgomery stood completely still. The crystal bourbon glass in his hand groaned under the sudden strong pressure of his grip. For a fraction of a second, the mask of the polished Wall Street man slipped and showed the wild, ancient monster underneath. His eyes flashed a poisonous, glowing yellow, and his upper lip twitched with the instinct to show his fangs. Alistair moved with a speed the human eye could not follow. One moment he stood beside Audrey. The next his hand was locked around Sebastian's throat. Alistair did not lift him, but the pure, painful force of the grip made Sebastian drop his glass. It shattered on the marble. Amber liquid splashed across their shiny shoes. "My wife," Alistair whispered in a horrifying, demonic rasp that belonged to a creature of nightmares, "just gave you a master class in modern war, Sebastian. In the past I would simply have cut your head from your shoulders for daring to look at her pulse. But Audrey is far more elegant in her cruelty. She prefers to take you apart piece by piece, starting with your pride and ending with your money." Several human guests nearby gasped and stepped back quickly. They had no idea of the supernatural truth, but they were deeply frightened by the raw, murderous feeling rolling off Alistair in waves. "Let him go, Alistair," Audrey said softly, placing a gentle hand on her husband's tight forearm. "He is not worth the dry-cleaning bill for your tuxedo. Besides, I want him awake to watch his empire fall on the Bloomberg screen tomorrow." Alistair's crimson eyes snapped to Audrey's face. The blinding rage in his expression softened at once at her touch. He released Sebastian with a disgusted shove and wiped his leather-gloved hand on a silk handkerchief from his pocket. Sebastian stumbled backward, rubbing his throat hard. He looked at Audrey with pure fear, finally replacing his noble pride. He realized with crushing certainty that she was not a weakness. She was a weapon. Without a single word, Sebastian turned and pushed through the crowd, almost running from the ballroom. "Remind me," Alistair murmured, wrapping his arms securely around Audrey's waist and pulling her close against his side, "to buy you something wildly expensive tomorrow. Watching you mentally defeat a 500-year-old vampire was the most exciting thing I have ever seen." Audrey laughed, a bright, clear sound that completely broke the remaining tension in the air. "I'll hold you to that. Cartier has a vintage emerald necklace I've been looking at." "Done," Alistair answered at once, the corners of his eyes crinkling. "Now I believe we have used up all the entertainment value of this party. Shall we leave, my queen?" "Let's go home," she agreed, resting her head against his shoulder. As they walked toward the grand exit, the sea of high society people parted for them with new, frightened respect. Mayors, senators, and billionaires bowed their heads as Alistair and Audrey passed. They stepped out of the heavy heat of the Waldorf Astoria into the sharp, cold air of the New York night. A sleek armored Maybach already waited at the curb, its doors held open by a loyal, immortal driver. Just as Audrey was about to step into the luxurious car, a pathetic, shivering figure moved out of the shadows of a nearby street lamp. It was Bradley Weston. His tuxedo jacket was wrinkled, his tie was loose, and he looked as if he had aged 10 years in 1 hour. Chloe was nowhere to be seen. She had clearly left the sinking ship the moment the money punishment had been announced. "Audrey," Bradley croaked, his voice raw. He took a hesitant step forward and stopped at once when the driver showed a set of very sharp, very unnatural teeth in a silent warning. Bradley fell to his knees on the cold concrete and clasped his hands together in complete defeat. "Audrey, I'm begging you. We spent 5 years together. I built that company from nothing. You know how hard I worked. You can't just let him take it all away. Please, I was stupid. I was blind. Audrey paused, her hand resting on the door frame of the Maybach. She looked down at the man who had thrown her away like trash, the man who had openly mocked her independence and her worth only an hour earlier. She felt no anger anymore, only a deep, heavy pity. You did not build that company from nothing, Bradley, Audrey said, her voice cold and clear in the quiet street. We built it. I checked your contracts. I fed you when you were too stressed to leave the garage. I put my own career aside so yours could grow. And the moment you got a taste of real money, you threw me away because I was not shiny enough for your new world. Bradley sobbed, a broken, pathetic sound that offered no real change. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Your apology is completely worthless, Alistair said smoothly as he stepped into the streetlight. Your company belongs to Vanguard Holdings now. Your assets will be sold by noon. I suggest you get used to the idea of public transport, Mr. Weston. Alistair guided Audrey into the soft leather seats of the Maybach and slid in beside her. The heavy door shut with a final solid thud, sealing them inside their own private, luxurious space. As the car pulled away from the curb and joined the glowing streams of Manhattan traffic, Audrey did not look back. She leaned into her husband's embrace and felt the cold, powerful beat of his immortal heart against her cheek. She was no longer a leftover. She was the queen of the night, and her reign had only just begun. Audrey's change from a discarded ex-girlfriend to the undisputed queen of the immortal underworld is the ultimate story of quiet strength winning over loud cruelty. Bradley completely destroyed his own life by treating people as tools. Sebastian learned a hard lesson about underestimating a powerful woman who understands both money and power. Many people think that true power comes only from money or titles. History and everyday life show something different. Real lasting strength often comes from knowing your own worth, keeping calm under pressure, and using knowledge wisely instead of shouting. When someone tries to make you feel small, the most powerful answer is often quiet confidence and clear facts. That is a lesson that works in school, at work, and in friendships. No vampires required. If you enjoy this video, please give it a thumbs up, share it, and subscribe so you don't miss my next video.